Optimism in Action is produced in collaboration with KAZU, your NPR station for the Monterey Bay area of California. You'll find this episode and archived episodes at kazu.org/sidebar.
Part of our mission is to serve the community. It's to raise awareness and, in our mind, to create action in the community.
That's today's guest on Sidebar, Bradley Zeve, founder and CEO of the Monterey County Weekly.
Sidebar is brought to you by Monterey College of Law, San Luis Obispo College of Law, Kern County College of Law, and Empire College of Law, located in Santa Rosa.
Welcome to Sidebar, featuring conversations about optimism in action with lawyers and leaders inspiring change. And now your co-hosts, Jackie Gardina and Mitch Winnick.
Jackie, I'm thrilled to have Bradley Zeve, founder and CEO of the Monterey County Weekly, and in fact, what I believe is the last print media actually serving our local community, but that's a conversation we're going to come back to in a little bit. What we want to talk about today, Jackie, is Monterey County Gives. This is a relatively unique fundraising program that was the brainchild of Bradley and several others in the nonprofit community here in Monterey that he will tell us about, that raised last year over $14 million that goes right back out to local nonprofits here in what is a relatively small community. So we want to talk to Bradley today about what made him think about that, how did you get that organized, and how has it become so successful in a relatively few years? Welcome to Sidebar, Bradley.
Thank you so much, Mitch. Thanks for having me today.
Welcome. I'm excited to talk to you and hear about your success.
Thank you, Jackie. Nice to meet you today.
Bradley, as I mentioned, $14 million. Take us back to the beginning. What was your original idea? How did you get this started? And did you ever think this was going to raise $14 million a year?
No, that's a simple answer to your last question. Never imagined that. But the idea was very simple. And it began around the year 2000. I wanted to use Monterey County Weekly as a way of creating an editorial spotlight for local nonprofits and simultaneously or concurrently reach out to our readers and say, hey, will you support this nonprofit? Here's an idea that we think is valuable to the community. We set up what's called a donor advised fund at the Community Foundation for Monterey County, the Monterey County Weekly Community Fund, and thus began phase one of what became Monterey County Gives. So that was 2000, and each year my team and I would select one nonprofit, and then it morphed into two nonprofits, and I think 6 was the last year before we converted it. And we would give some editorial focus and create that excitement for what the groups were doing, and then turn to our readers and ask them to support those specific groups. And years later, I had seen a similar program that was in Portland and Miami, and I thought we could create something like this, something much bigger. And I went to the Community Foundation, and they had new leadership, Dan Baldwin, and I said, Dan, we want to create this, and we want to involve you. And he said, okay, if you want to do this, we'll work with you. We'll partner with you. So my team and I built the website, which was clever and ultimately worked, Mitch and Jackie. The idea was we thought, let's create a really simple platform where we can use the print vehicle of the weekly. We can use our website, and we can direct people to this very specific website where they can read about groups in greater detail, read their 990s, and then very simply, like Amazon, just add a dollar amount they want to contribute, put it in the cart, and then pay for it, and away we go. So that's the long answer of how it all got started. That was 2009 when we built that initial website, version 1.0.
We were able to speak with Dan Baldwin about the work at the Community Foundation, so it's great that we were able to close the loop for some of our listeners. One of the things that really intrigues me about this is that the Monterey Weekly is a local newspaper, and the newspaper made a decision about taking a real community action-oriented approach. Can you talk about how that fits with being in the newspaper business?
It's an interesting question. I mean, it really is outside of our normal bandwidth. You're absolutely right. But part of our mission is to serve the community. It's to raise awareness and, in our mind, to create action in the community. So this seemed to fit into that idea, to be an organization supporting nonprofits very directly, certainly unusual. We are a news organization, so ideally you do not want to be in Monterey County Gives, and then on the other side of the building, you end up in our news pages for the reasons you don't want. It's worked. Somehow it's been aligned with our mission, and we've built great partners in the community to support Monterey County Gives, including the Community Foundation, including the Monterey Peninsula Foundation, and a number of other smaller partners. So it works.
Well, and you say it works, but you make it sound like it just kind of grew organically. But I'm looking at last year's statistics, and it's really just, to me, astounding. In the time that Monterey County Gives has been active, 500 local nonprofits raised and donated over $82 million and allowed almost 8,000 individuals in the community to become engaged. Those numbers are really huge. You would think we were talking about San Jose, not Monterey County.
Yeah, I think you're right. The numbers are astounding, and it's really exciting. I wish I could explain what the real magic is. The essence of a project like Monterey County Gives is that it's a collaborative project where 1 + 1 = 3. You're right. Last year we had 8,000 donors. There's essentially 450,000 people in Monterey County. Of those, probably a couple 100,000 are adults who could participate at any level. It's a $10 minimum contribution. So if we could go from 8,000 donors to 10,000 or 20,000, I can't even imagine what numbers we'll raise. It's been just remarkable. There's not only the small donors, but there's some individuals in this community that have really come to understand the value of Monterey County Gives. They're large contributors, they're smaller contributors. So it's really just been one layer at a time, if you will, that's working. And we just continue to figure out how to make this program better for all of us. So it's been great.
What about the unique matching program?
We have 13 partners in the match that are listed on the website. This year we started, our match was $1.8 million, I think is what we raised. If you give your $10 or $100, each group gets a pro rata match. So that helps your money go further. That's been one of the magic parts of Gives.
That's great.
Bradley, as you've been talking about the success of it, let's let those who are listening understand how they can participate and contribute to Monterey Gives and become a part of that 8,000 to 10,000 to 20,000. If I wanted to donate, how would I do that?
Jackie, I mean, this is going to be an expensive podcast for you today. What dollar amount are we talking about exactly? Okay, I'm kidding, of course. So $10 is the minimum. It's very simple. It starts with the print publication, where this year we selected 213 nonprofits to be in Monterey County Gives. And each year we get an increasing number of local nonprofits. We estimate there's about 1,000 nonprofits in the community. We ask for their proposals and we go through those during the summer. And this year we selected 213. You can read about those in print in mid-November, where we've written about each of the nonprofits, categorized into 6 categories. And then we encourage you to go to the website where you can learn more. Click around, you can read their mission, you can read about what their impact is on the community. And then what I think's been really helpful is that within that website is what's called a 990 form. Each nonprofit annually has to report to the IRS what is called a 990, and it shows how efficient they are running their operation in terms of where the money's spent, what the salaries are for their key staff. It's really an assessment. It's a financial assessment.
Let me just ask a quick question about that before we move off the 990s and the efficiency of the not-for-profits. Is that one of the criterion that you look at when you're choosing the 200 plus that are going to be a part of it? How do you choose those?
It's a good question, Jackie. I mean, we look at a number of different factors, and I'm not sure it's in this order, because we're familiar with a lot of the nonprofits over the years. Because we've reported on most of these organizations, that's very helpful. But every year there's new nonprofits that have gotten to a point where they want to request money for a bigger impact. So I would say the first criteria is we look at something we call the big idea. We ask them to define that for the upcoming year. What's your big idea for the community? And sometimes that big idea is that we just want to be in business. We just want to make an impact. And it's not so much to create a very specific program, but it's to do more general services. Number two is, what is the impact? And how do we assess that? How do you compare a nonprofit that has a budget of $8 million with another nonprofit that has a budget of $50,000? They each have impact, is what we've learned. It's scaled differently. We assess impact and try and put on those glasses to determine, well, is the impact, are they punching above their weight class? If they have a $50,000 budget, what are they doing with that? And so that's another criteria. And then we look at the 990 and try and assess best we can, well, how are they running the organization? Are they efficient? Are things in line? Another criteria is governance, where we look at the board of directors and see how diverse that board is. It's ideally 5 members or more. It's not 5 family members. So we're looking for transparency within that board of directors to ensure that there's a whole cross-section of ideas that's taking place. We just learned that strengthens the operation of a nonprofit, is to have different voices that work it out amongst themselves.
Bradley, one of the things you said earlier, I want to just call back out, is you've made it so easy on the website. I think that is really a big difference. I, like many people, get the print edition that's printed in the weekly, and I look through. But even better, I'm just looking here on the website, and you talked about the 6 categories. And let me just go down those to let people know the breadth of organizations that are engaged in this program. The 6 were animals, arts and culture, community and social service, education and youth, environment and sustainability, and then health, wellness, and food. Jackie and I have probably talked to nonprofit leaders in pretty much every one of those categories over the 70-plus episodes of Sidebar, but it just amazes me that it allows you to spread the wealth of those who want to help across, just as you said, something that's meaningful to them.
We ask each nonprofit when they apply to self-identify what category they want to be in. So they have to decide where they want to be listed. What's beautiful about the print edition to kick off the campaign is they take the print edition, they'll sit down with their family. Family comes together and says, okay, here's who we want to support. But the website has the ability to go deeper into the information, whether it's a video testimonial or it's the 990. They can also see live time how much the organization's raised. It just has these bells and whistles that seem to help people navigate the whole system. It's quite simple but elegant.
The law school, as a nonprofit, has been fortunate to be a part of this program for quite a few years.
Monterey College of Law is important to the community, and it's served a lot of different people. The challenge that the Monterey College of Law has is to figure out who in the community will support it and help it go to the next level in terms of raising the money that it needs to have a bigger impact. Each organization has to ask themselves, who is it that we're not speaking to that may be an important contributor to us?
Support for Optimism in Action comes from the Monterey College of Law, a nonprofit law school serving the Monterey Bay region with evening classes on campus or in a hybrid online format. More details and applications available at montereylaw.edu. That's montereylaw.edu.
Bradley, one of the surprising things to me is that as Jackie and I have talked to quite a few leaders of nonprofits, and many of them are having different financial challenges now than they had 2, 3, 4 years ago. Loss of federal funding, loss of grants. But I don't see that kind of pattern in the giving. I think the giving still remains more of an individual preference, not one that necessarily reflects changes in the need of the organization. Is that too far of a stretch?
Well, it's a good question and interesting insight, Mitch. I don't know. Because each year I look at the numbers from the previous year and wonder, well, how are we possibly going to raise $14 million in 6 weeks? It just seems like a boulder that can't be pushed up the hill. I wonder, though, if there's certainly a number of people that are sophisticated in the community that are tracking the news, they're tracking the state of the world. And they may just recognize, well, if the federal government's not stepping up and supporting these programs, I'm going to. It's a very much an individual decision, and all we can do is encourage people and offer them the mechanism to do that.
I want to pivot to the work that you do when you're not saving Monterey County, which is the newspaper. You started the newspaper in 1988. Media was very different in 88 than it is now. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges that the industry is facing right now that you want people to be aware of?
I'm not sure if we had our grandparents on the podcast that they wouldn't say, these are unusual times we're in. I think it's a generational pattern. But these are unusual times. I will say that. As we know, there's been an unbelievable, shocking contraction within the news media world in the 37 years that I've been in my seat. It's been extraordinary. It's really been accelerating for the last 20 to 25 years, since 2000. 2004, I believe, is when Facebook started to become popular. I think they had 1 million users on Facebook, but within a number of years, they had billions of users on Facebook. So the idea that Monterey County Weekly and Monterey County Now would be competing against Facebook or Google that didn't even exist, that they weren't even the dreams in somebody's mind yet, is something that most of us in news media, it's the astounding part. How do you prepare to compete against some organization in the future that hasn't even been dreamt up yet? In many ways, that's what we've been doing. I'm disappointed that the large media organizations have contracted as they have. I believe they've really shown that their priority is profit, number one. When I started the Weekly, I didn't really have a business plan. I definitely knew we wanted to have a great newspaper and that we wanted to tell the stories that weren't being told by the other media. And of course, I knew we had to make more money than we were spending. But what's happened in corporate media today is just disheartening, because it's so much of it seems it's profit-oriented. And if they're not getting double-digit returns, then they're not that interested in the business of the news. I think that's a giant mistake, and it's impacting all of us greatly. Our mantra for many years has been that good news is good business.
One of the things I've noticed that you've been very clear about in your print edition, you're not short of opinions and you're not short of soliciting opinions, but you clearly distinguish the difference between something that's being written as an opinion versus something that's being written as reporting on the news. And I fear that distinction is getting hard to find in the national news and the national press, and certainly in the online press. Is that a fair observation?
Clearly, what's happened with social media is just an abomination. The impact on all of us is so great because you have billions of people on Facebook and billions of people on Instagram and TikTok, and it's unvetted. We can all have our channels and we can say whatever we want. And there's no editor there to say, well, Mitch, that isn't right. Or, Mitch, where did you get that story? What are the facts for that story? I'm old school in this way that I believe everybody needs an editor. Because the beauty of having an editor is that they challenge you. We all have assumptions on what is right or wrong. And the editor, that's not good enough for an editor. An editor says, show me the facts. And who have you talked to verify these facts? And we're seeing it more and more, particularly as AI is coming on board. It's hard to discern. If somebody has a channel and they're well followed, they're an influencer, well, are they telling us the truth or not? Or are they just telling us what they want to tell us because they're getting sponsored for that? Or are they telling us what they want to tell us because they just have that belief? They haven't really questioned their assumptions. I think it's a really tricky time, and it's showing up in so many ways. It's certainly showing up politically. There's politicians just accusing the media of having a certain bias, and they use it to make everybody question whether we are legitimate or not. It's a grave attack on one of the cornerstone institutions.
Bradley, you were chair of the Free Speech Coalition.
Well, there's a free speech committee at the Association of Alternative News Media. I was the free speech chair for years.
The answer to bad speech or speech we disagree with is more speech. When you have falsehoods, then you need to speak truth to them, but it's not for government to censor. How do you hold both things?
I do. We all have the right to say whatever it is we want. But what we're talking about is the outsized influence of social media, in that the consumers aren't really doing a great job of discerning, well, is this accurate or not? And in some ways, the way that Facebook's designed and the algorithms are designed in Google, whether it's accurate or inaccurate, doesn't impact whether it's well-read or not well-read. In fact, if anything, they're fine with putting out disinformation as long as it just keeps the eyeballs on the site and keeps people spending their time on the site. That's not a free speech issue. That's about the truth and the ability to discern the truth. By the way, free speech shouldn't be the speech that we all like. So I think that's the part that we have to really encourage and value. But what's happening with the tech companies is that even when there's been pointed out that they have disinformation that is patently false, they don't take it down. They don't change the patterns for eyeballs to see it. They're not saying, okay, this is wrong, we're not going to put it out there. That should concern all of us.
Bradley, as we started, we're talking about all the positive things you've been doing and what you've accomplished with Monterey County Gives. We've talked about now some of the challenges related to free speech and the free press. But what we like to end each episode with is to talk about optimism. And in fact, our theme this season is optimism in action. Certainly, Monterey County Gives as a program is purely optimism in action. But what about you personally? What are you optimistic about when you look out at these series of challenges that we're going through as a community and as a country?
Well, that's an easy question, isn't it, Mitch? No, it's not. These are particularly challenging times. And there's been some great policies that I think have had us spinning in the right direction that are being quickly unraveled. I am generally optimistic. There's a huge amount of work to do, and things are not going very well at this particular moment in all kinds of metrics. From my point of view, there's 2/3 fewer journalists in 2025 than there were in 2005. 2/3 fewer. So there's a lot of numbers that you could look at and go, well, geez, things aren't going well. But I just have faith when people come together around a specific problem that we are wildly innovative. And so I don't know how we're going to resolve some of these challenges. I don't know. But I just have this general sense that, and we've seen it here in Monterey County, when there's crisis, and then we've had our share, whether it's earthquakes, fires, floods, economic downturns, the community has found amazing ways to come together and work with each other and support those most in need. That's what I lean towards. That's the optimism, is that we are tenacious humans, and collectively, when I look around, there's just so much that's amazing.
Bradley, what you've done with Monterey County Gives is incredibly optimistic, because you both highlight people who are doing important work to change the community, as well as give people an opportunity to contribute and make an impact in their community. Thank you for the work that you've done there. And thank you for having a local newspaper, being a local journalist, paying attention to what's happening in your community. So thank you for both those things. In my mind, both those things are optimistic actions.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, I think that Monterey County Gives is very much exactly what I'm speaking about in terms of the collaborative process. It's a great example of how working together, we can just do things that just seem extraordinary, and we never would have imagined that kind of success.
Thank you, Bradley. And a reminder to everyone that Monterey County Gives will extend through midnight, December 31st. This episode will be airing on December 2nd, so there's still plenty of time to go onto the website at montereycountygives.com or mcgives.com.
Thank you so much, Mitch. Thanks for having me today. Thank you, Jackie. Nice to meet you today.
Jackie, it's great to have someone like Bradley Zeve on Sidebar Optimism in Action. Bradley represents an individual who was in one industry. He was in the printed press business, looked out across his community and said, there are other needs beyond just putting out a weekly newspaper. And he worked with individuals across the community to create this unique Monterey County Gives program that is now contributing over $14 million a year across hundreds of nonprofits, everywhere from education to healthcare to children's programs to animal rescues. I mean, it goes on and on. It's such a perfect example of what we have been talking about this season of Sidebar, where an individual within their community looks out and says, there's a need. What could I do to make that better? And Bradley Zeve did that with the Monterey County Gives.
I think the other piece of that is, and it's a good reminder at a time when perhaps people feel disappointed or distraught about where we are right now in our body politic, is that Bradley Zeve started it, but thousands of people donated to it. People rally around those in need in their communities. I just think it's so important for us to remember that our society is built on that basic human connection. And Bradley allowed us to see how it plays out specifically in Monterey County, and it's happening across the country. Once again, I want to thank everyone who joined us today on Sidebar. And as always, Mitch and I would love to know what's on your mind. You can reach us at sidebarmedia.org.
Sidebar would not be possible without our producer, David Eakin, who composes and plays all of the music you hear on Sidebar. Thank you also to Dina Dowsett, who creates and coordinates Sidebar's social media marketing.
Optimism in Action is produced in collaboration with KAZU, your NPR station for the Monterey Bay area of California. You'll find this episode and archived episodes at kazu.org/sidebar.